the shear waves coming in, which are shearing motions in the earth, the kind of motion that does most of the damage.
These shear waves would move the earth from side to side by as much as a meter. There would also be surface waves, like ocean waves rippling through the solid earth.
If you are in a parking lot, it's likely that you see waves rolling across the parking lot, like if you took a carpet and shook it.
As the shaking becomes more and more intense, people would realize that this was no ordinary earthquake.
That shaking will continue to build. You'll feel the first sway, and it'll start to build and build and build, and you'll wonder when it's going to stop.
Indoors, objects and furniture would be hurled around the room. Parts of the building may start to fall.
Right when you feel the earthquake shaking, what we train people to do is to duck, cover, and hold.
Schools and offices now practice this life-saving maneuver, going under a strong desk and holding onto it.
Anything that might fall won't fall on you directly, it will fall on the table, and the whole time you protect your...
For people outside, the major hazard would be falling debris and shattering glass.
If you're outside somewhere, the best thing to do is to move quickly into open space, such as away from a building where you might have falling objects.
Buildings would now be exposed to huge forces as they're shunted back and forth. The unreinforced masonry buildings would be the first to suffer damage.
The weakest points start to fail. In most cases, because they're older structures, it's the mortar.
The elements that support the building vertically, if they start to come down, the floors themselves potentially can come down.
Collapsing URMs could cause many fatalities throughout the region. The shaking in Seattle would now have been going on for 2 minutes, but we'd only be halfway through.
For a typical earthquake, if a building gets damaged in the first 20-30 seconds, it very likely can remain standing. But if that damaged building is shaken for another 3 minutes, then that damage can propagate into collapse.
Meanwhile, the large movements of the ground would be making skyscrapers bend further and further.
You may see the buildings begin to sway more and more violently to the point where they start to perhaps lose windows. They may, in addition, start to have some fracturing of welds and steel frame buildings. What happens after that is anybody's guess.
The worst case scenario would be the total collapse of a high-rise building.